Greetings, I'm Zachary Hepner. Pleased to share this Dvar Torah with you for Parashat Devarim. The final aliyot in Parashat Devarim are devoted to the details of the military history of the Israelites in the wilderness. Chapter 3 begins with the Israelites traversing the land of Bashan when Og, the king of Bashan, advanced with his military. Verse 2 and the final verse of Parashat Devarim have the same imperative. Vayomer Hashem Elai al tira oto, ki v'yadcha natati oto, v'et kol amo v'et artzo v'asita lo kasher asita li Sihon melech Amori, asher yoshev b'Heshbon. Hashem said to me, do not fear him, for I am delivering him and all his troops and his country into your power, and you will do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. God told Moshe not to fear Og. Following the destruction of Og, more conquests are ahead, such as the conquest that will be waged by Joshua. And the final verse of Parashat Devarim is, Lo tiraum ki Hashem Elokechem hu hanilcham lachem. Do not fear them, for it is your God Hashem who will battle for you. While the entire Parashat Devarim is recounting of the past and how God ordered Moshe not to fear Og or his army, the final verse in Devarim is actually a command for the future. Do not be afraid of the Canaanite nations, because God will battle for you. The Alshlech, on verse 2, quoting the Midrash, says that God told Moshe not to be afraid because Moshe was concerned that Og had been circumcised, which provided spiritual benefit and merit, and that could have tipped the scales. Alshlech points out that the verse says, Al tira oto, ki v'yadcha natati oto, which quotes the word oto twice, and it resonates with the word ot, which is a sign, in this case, the sign of circumcision. Alshlech continues that Moshe was worried that there were 40 years of newborn Israelites who were yet uncircumcised. These were people who were waging war against a king who had circumcised himself at the time of Abraham. That's Og. However, the act of circumcision performed when the Israelites had left Egypt for Pesach, Mitzrayim, was a sufficient counterweight of merit towards the Israelites. Parenthetically, this does echo the fear that Chazal say Yaakov felt when he had his encounter with Esav. Chazal say Shema Yigrom Hachet. Yaakov was actually afraid that Esav had merit, and that's why he was afraid that he would be harmed. A few Midrashim observe that Og was arrogant, that Yitzchak was destined to inherit the Holy Land. He said, why is Abraham proud? I can make this baby in his crib a pile of bones with my pinky finger. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, by your life, you and your kingdom will fall before one of Isaac's descendants. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. That Og had a Brit Milah is actually recorded in Zohar Lech Lecha. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Og melech Bashan, Avad Brit Milah b'mei Avraham, v'lachen nitzol mimabul. Rabbi Yitzchak said Og, the king of Bashan, had performed the circumcision in the days of Avraham, and therefore he was saved from the flood. What this means is that he was actually circumcised before the flood, and therefore he was saved during the flood. According to the Zohar, Og's circumcision was hundreds of years before Abraham's. However, according to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer 23, also mentions that Og had a circumcision, and it was in the time of Abraham. As it says, Hapalit hu Og melech Bashan shenimlal bimei Avraham Avinu. He had his circumcision during the time of Avraham Avinu. Seemingly, the circumcision for Og acted as a protection, both during the time of the flood and against the war of the 5 kings in Parashat Lech Lecha. The death of Og is recorded in Bamidbar, Rabbah 19, Tanchuma Chukat 25, Yalkut Shimoni Parshas Chukat, and in the Bavli, Sanhedrin 95. Interestingly, they all have the same story of Og's death. I'm going to quote the Bavli version in Sanhedrin 95, Daf Amud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Bot Hashat Akar Og Harasha Har B'Maduran Shel Yisrael V'Hayabao Manicho Alehem Hevi HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nimalim V'Nikru L'Mala V'Nishar Hahar Al Tzavaro Bikesh Lefarko Nitakru Shinav Milamata V'Nitka Bo V'Lo Yachol Lefarko Ma'asa Moshe Natal Kardon Shu Eser Amot Kapatz Eser Amot V'Hika B'Karisulo V'Harago. Rabbi Yochanan said, at that time Og the wicked uprooted a mountain the size of the Israelite encampment and came to hurl it upon Israel. The Holy One, blessed be He, sent ants, and they hollowed it out from the top. When Og lowered the mountain onto his head, it sank and encircled his neck. Og tried to remove it, but his teeth became embedded into it from below, and he could not extricate it from his neck. What did Moshe do? He took an axe that was 10 cubits long, jumped 10 cubits in the air, and struck Og on his ankle, killing him. All the texts of his death are quite similar, and the ants play an important role in the death of Og. On one hand, it echoes the text in Gittin, where Titus is punished by God with death by a gnat. A larger-than-life character challenges the Jews and is undone by the smallest of creatures, which is a humbling message indeed. But the use of ants, nemalim, is an oblique reference to Og's circumcision. Nemalim, ants, resonates with nimolim, circumcised. Og's merit of being circumcised was cancelled. It was nullified when he chose to bury the Israelites under a mountain. The geometry of Og's downfall further echoes the circumcision because his neck was stuck in the concentric circle. This geometry is also evident in all other rabbinic texts, and it echoes an uncircumcised Arael, as if his kryptonite was being an Arael, and the ants, which are nemalim, made him temporarily an Arael, and that was the moment that Moshe struck him in the ankle. Parenthetically, the striking of Og in the ankle does not necessarily echo the myth of Achilles, who is dipped in the river Styx by his mother, except for his ankle. Og is a giant of mythological proportions, while Achilles was a very powerful individual who had magic protection. To recap, Og is bigger than life, a man with strength and bravado. He is unimpressed with Abraham, yet he either knows about the benefit of circumcision as a protective procedure, or he too has a circumcision which gives him claim to the Holy Land. Abraham is a man who is influential and loyal to God. He has a small band of loyalists, and Abraham's defense is God and only God. Circumcision is not a talisman, but a divine covenant and relationship with God. Moshe, on the other hand, is the flawed character in Tanakh, who is resistant to circumcision. He almost failed at this task, as is clear in the bridegroom of blood narrative in the beginning of Sefer Shmot. My father suggests that Moshe was generally resistant to any form of violence. That's possible, though according to Al-Shlech, Moshe and the Israelites had sufficient merit from the Brit Milah that they had performed when they left Egypt. This recurrent theme of circumcision with Avraham Avinu, with Yitzchak Avinu, with Moshe Rabbeinu's children, with the Israelites in Parashat Bo when they left Egypt, and then in Yehoshua in Givat Ha'arelot. In what way does it differ from Og's protective circumcision? So firstly, there's an obvious polemic. There might arise a time in the future where there will be a circumcised non-Israelite population residing in the Holy Land. They might use their status of non-Arelim as a support for their right to the Holy Land. Og's fate answers that dilemma. Any protection that he may have merited from his circumcision was nullified when he went against the Israelites. The use of ants, nemalim, to make a hole for his head further supports that he was relying on the circumcision as his protection. Chapter 3 of Devarim begins with God telling Moshe, "Do not be afraid." Moshe was afraid that Og had claim and merit. The last verse of Parashat Devarim is Moshe ordering the Israelites not to be afraid. I feel that it's a general rule. Do not be afraid of any challenge. Don't be afraid that something can hurt you, because God is fighting your battle, and what is difficult for you is an easy battle for God. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.